Welcome back. This week, believe it or not, we are going to tie an egg pattern. It has been years since I have fished an egg. As Johnny says, I'm not an egger. Don't really tie these things much anymore these days. When I was a kid, I tied and fished a ton of them. Certain times of year, especially in the winter, man, we would go out there and just have a day fishing eggs. And even as I got a little bit older, you know, we'd go up to Erie and we'd fish the tribs up there, and we would fish egg patterns a lot. Probably to this day, like if I went up to Erie, I would have some eggs in the fly box, just because they were so effective back then. I would like to think that my fishing has improved a little bit since then. You never know. I'd probably still carry a cheat pattern or two. But nowadays, no. I mean, it feels like cheating, honestly. You know, as I got a little bit older and I started, you know, getting a little more confident in my abilities, I would still carry the eggs with me. I'd make sure that I wasn't fishing with anybody, and if I was having a tough day, especially in the winter, you know, I'd kind of do one of these deals and look over my shoulder and, hey, no one's going to see me tie this egg on. I'd catch 3 or 4 and boost my confidence a little bit and then go back to the nymphing. But there's no denying the effectiveness of an egg at a certain time. It's just like fishing a hatch, you know. I mean, when there's a pile of mayflies coming off, you're going to be fishing that mayfly. Same thing post-spawn. When the eggs are out, that's what they're keying on. So I mean, if you want to catch fish, go with the eggs. But it just kind of feels like cheating to me, so I don't really do it anymore. Mainly, I just don't fish nymphs really anymore, especially in the winter. That's some of the best streamer fishing out there. Black Dog's a little upset about something, but yeah. So we're gonna go ahead into this. When I first started tying, this was one of the better patterns to actually learn. I tried a ton of different things to, you know, because I mean, she's running around somewhere. Back in the day, you know, when I was first starting to get going, there was no YouTube, there was no videos, at least not that I was able to get a hold of, and you had to just kind of figure everything out on your own. And I would go with, you know, I would get like the Orvis magazines or whatever magazine that would come in the mail, and I would just look at these patterns. And one of the ones that I always looked at was the egg pattern, and it was just always perfectly tied. You couldn't see where the thread wraps were. It was just a nice cylindrical, nice perfectly circular ball. And I was like, man, mine don't look anything like that. Not that it made a difference. I mean, it'd still catch fish, but you know, from a tier's perspective, even back then, I was always wanting to get rid of that thread wrap that you could see, especially when it got wet. So I always went over and over and tried to make it perfect, and I used the finest thread possible that I could find, and it wouldn't quite get where I wanted it to be. It wasn't like what I saw in the magazines. So come to find out that it was actually the streamers and working with ram's wool and things of that nature that actually helped me tie a better egg pattern, if that makes sense. You think it would work the opposite direction. You would learn the techniques younger, and then they would apply to stuff that you use older, but it worked backwards for me. Maybe I'm a slow study or something. But there are a few things, I mean, really, I mean, this is one of the most basic patterns that you will ever tie, but there are a few things out there, and if I can help somebody that is working on an egg pattern that was going through the same struggles that I was as a kid, yeah, I'd be glad to get rid of a lot of frustration that I went through because I just couldn't figure it out for some reason. I didn't have anyone to show me or anything like that. I know a lot of folks are going to be like, man, you're tying an egg, I'm probably going to mess it up, to be honest with you. It's probably not going to look near as good as what a lot of other folks are able to tie. But I'm going to go ahead and maybe if I can cut down the learning curve for 1 or 2 folks out there, I'll take a little bit of ridicule for tying an egg on YouTube, so it'll be alright. You won't hurt my feelings. Anyhow, let me get moved here. That looks pretty good. Alright, so I just have a Daiichi 1120. This is a size 14 egg or caddis larva hook, whatever you want, whatever you feel comfortable with. And I'm just going to build up a little bit of a bump here on the one side, and I'm going to advance it and build a little bit of a bump up right there, and somewhere in the center is where I'm going to rest with my thread. And this is all we're going to do here. This is just straight Glo-Bug yarn. You can get this stuff's probably 25 years old or better. Still doing a pretty good job though. All I'm going to have here is just now, before I go into this, let me go back and show you a trick that I used when I was younger. Make sure that I'm centered in there. So, you can take an old pen here because this stuff, well, not really, yeah, this stuff can get a little bit messy to work with. And it can be tough to organize, and by the time you tie a couple dozen patterns, or a couple dozen flies, this stuff kind of gets all matted together, and one runs into the other, and it's really tough to keep separated. An easy trick for that is to just take a pen and take this apart, this little plastic piece, right where there's no ink or anything, just cut that right there, and you can take a piece of fishing line, run it through there, catch your egg, or catch your egg material, pull it through, and then it keeps it nice and organized through the entirety of the material that you're working with. So, just a quick little trick that I got from an old timer there. So, back into the actual tying of this egg. Now, like I was saying, I'm just going to take a little bit of that Glo-Bug yarn here, and this is probably, I don't know, probably, I'm not even in the frame, probably about an inch long piece. I'm just going to take this and cut it in half, and I'm going to use half of this all the way around. Make sure that you clean this stuff out. You can do it with your fingers. Just make sure that there's no really big bumps or anything. If you want, I'll pull it over here, and I know you can't see it because it's off the camera. I'll just run it through my comb really quick, and then all I'm going to do now is just wrap this around my thread. I'm going to secure it in place, and I've got one wrap. I'm going to come right in front of it, right behind it. That way I'm not trying to work through that material. And then I'm going to come on the camera side, same thing, or not on the camera side, I'm going to come on my side here, and this is just going to be at a 90 off of the hook. I'm going to go one in front, one behind. Take another piece of this, and I'm going to go on the camera side this time, but I'm going to flip the vise so I can see what the hell I'm doing. And I'm going to plant that on the camera side at a 90. Come around it once, around it twice, and you're not catching any material on this. That's one thing that I didn't explain when I was doing that. You're not really catching any material. All you're doing is coming around your material and securing the previous wraps to the hook shank. Make sure that you don't catch any material or it's going to wind up making a mess. And if you tie enough of these like I used to, you come up with a pretty good process to where you can actually put two materials on at a time. But for the sake of me tying a clean fly here and ensuring that I don't mess it up, I'm going to do 4 different sections here. So really now all I have is one thread wrap around 4 pieces of material, and it is secure as it's going to be if I were to make 15 wraps. That's where I used to get hung up a lot. I would take a piece and I would just hold it out like you typically would. You would hold this over the material, you'd make 3 or 4 wraps, cinch everything down, and then before you know it, you have a big thread base build up, and it just makes a mess. Now, another thing that you can do on this if you want to really jazz up an egg pattern, which, you know, I mean, I see a lot of them out there. I wouldn't do it in purple, but I'm going to do it for contrast on this. Is I'm just going to take something, typically I would use like a red or a pink back in the day, but I'm just going to take a little bit of purple here, and I'm going to find a good spot. I'm going to kind of move this material around. I'm going to open up a spot on this, and then I'm going to bring this purple in. That's going to be a little bit too much. I'm going to take probably a third of that and get rid of it. And then I'm just going to take this purple and I'm going to plant it right in the center. Same thing, I'm going to go behind my material. I'm going to give it one extra wrap. I'll come underneath of it, not catching any material, and make some wraps. Move everything forward, come underneath it again, and then we're going to whip finish. Go ahead and trim your thread if you want to at this point. Go ahead and throw some glue on there, whatever you want to do. And then I'm just going to take a comb real quick, kind of marry all this material together. And at this point you can see, I mean, we've got a decent amount of material on there, but really there's only 5 thread wraps in the center on that. So it's not going to create a ton of bulk. And then all I'm going to do is pick all of this material up, and I'm going to make a half moon cut. Let me try and get my fingers out of the way there. I'm just going to make a half moon cut up and around. Just working my way around there, and I'm going to bring this material around here. Trim that dot a little bit. It's a little bit longer than the rest of my material. There we go. And then I'm going to come on the underneath side here. I'm going to peel everything up as much as I can. And I'm just going to follow that same path that I used for my top portion. Just kind of fluff that up, dress it up a little bit. There's one little section in there that I don't like too much. But there you have it. There's the egg pattern. You have that one little offsetting color. Like I said, I used purple on this one mainly just to be a just to offset the orange or yellow, whatever the heck color it is I used right there. But that's it. I mean, it doesn't get much simpler than that. And you can also see, like, I'll spin this the entire way around. There is no thread path throughout it. And you can take as much time as you want just trimming this up and making it nice and clean, whatever you want to do. But at the end of the day, I mean, that's pretty solid there. Once it gets wet, it's going to continue to hold that form and everything. So that should pretty well do it. And really, I mean, yeah, that'd do it. I'm not going to go into anything else any further. So there you have it. There is the simple egg pattern that drove me absolutely insane. There's a dang work phone. Drove me absolutely insane when I was a kid. So, if you have any further questions on that, I'm going to have to answer work here in a minute. But if you have any further questions on this pattern, shoot them to me. As always, I'll get back to you. But thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next week.